Okay, we're recording. I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their schedules to be with us on these regular meetings. I know there's other things, well, obviously just chatting leading up. There's other things that we have to do. I was especially glad to hear from Bob because we worked together. I don't know how many of you know that, but Bob and I worked together in Portland. What has it been, 10, 12 years ago?
It was a little over 12 years ago,
Yeah.
around 13 or so.
So it's
Because
been, yeah.
we ended up we had worked together, and then I ended up going off to PNC and spent 11 and a half years there. Spent a year basically unemployed, looking for new work after my position was displaced. From there, and I have since landed at the Greenbrier Companies, which is a company uh, locally in the Portland area, Beaverton, and also worldwide. We have Mexican facilities and some other facilities in Europe and stuff. They build rail cars and barges, so for doing shipping and stuff. And right now I work with Greenbrier Management Services, working on the more management side of the rail industry, which is totally different than banking where I was at. So it's kind of cool, and I'm enjoying that. Um, since leaving, and so I went to PNC and was doing a lot of access development work for the first probably 3 years or so, and then they ended up went to more of a SQL Server uh, with a vendor's C# front end. So I had to make quite a big change there, focusing mostly on SSRS and Tableau at that point. Right now I'm focused on SSRS and Power BI, and I'm currently actually even taking a Access database and converting a bunch of the VBA stuff into SQL script to be able to do what they need to do to be able to put this into an SSRS report. So anyway, that being said, I need to apologize slightly, is that I didn't get quite the chance to prepare as well as I had hoped to prepare. I had some ideas of what I was going to do, and I'm unfortunately one more of those that works best under pressure. But when I got sick 3 days ago and have been spent the last couple of days in bed, not doing anything but trying to recover. So I've uh, I've got some stuff here, and hopefully it'll give you the idea of what you can do with it if you wish to do it. It's this is just basically a different way of being able to handle certain things if you find that it might work better than say stacking subreports and things on to a report. Plus, I also have to make the comment is that it doesn't really work for just report viewing. It's more meant for if you're actually printing a report or printing to a PDF, that sort of thing, because you have to use the on format, and it's not doesn't seem to work with the just the viewer just viewing the report. So that being said, let me go ahead and get started with what I do have, and hopefully that will be helpful. Now, part of the thing that I was working on trying to get it to do is because I'm thinking back as to what we were doing at PNC for this. I did not come up with this idea. This was already there when I got there. I'm not sure if Jeff Croxford, which some of you may know, he may have come up with this, or another guy that was named Eric Serbrook that was there beforehand. So I'm not sure who actually came up with the idea, but there was a good purpose for what we were doing. And the idea, what it is we're using a tab control on this report in order to display different ways of showing the data when you have a different property status. So in this case, let me go ahead and I'm just going to bring that down slightly temporarily and show that, let's see if I can get this window out of my way. There we go. All right. And so I'm going to start with the first. This is my tab control. So I have two tab controls right now. I got tab headers and tab report. Tab report is down here in the details. Tab headers is obviously in the header. So if I go to page 2 right now, this I have my controls of what I wanted to see on it. My caption I put as construction so I could keep track of this. It gets a little weird when you're trying to edit the stuff. So sometimes it may come in handy to be able to, let's see, we do trying to remember my wrong one there. I need tab report, and so style, if I put tabs here, so then I can go back and look at the thing, but I'll have to pull it down slightly. Okay, where is it? Where did my tabs go? Sorry. There you go. Okay. Didn't mind it. So you can see, so you can switch between the ones if you wanted to put some different controls on there. So on construction with it, I've got these using the main data source for this report, which happens to be this query here that shows I have the property name, address, city, state, finance type, construction status, property status, construction budget amount, construction budget used, the percent complete based on the percentage of construction budget used, and the asset manager's name if it's gone to asset management. And so I'm going to go ahead and back here. Just kind of do a quick show. Obviously, I've got spacing issues and things that I'd have to deal with, but as you can see, so I have the construction status here with it. I have this other construction completed status, which I don't have headers for because I didn't get a chance to put them in. And also got the asset manager version, which is when it hits the asset management status, then it only shows those two fields that I selected and wanted to see. So you can kind of see that you can make things totally different for different statuses by using the different tab controls. You can put in different graphics. You can put in different different fields, different titles, and yet it would still be the same report. And basically without sub-reports, although this one's a sub-report that I put in there just so you could see that you could actually do that too. And this is how the code works for that. Is basically in the format function. In the format event, you can have the tab report value is set to be the property status ID, in this case -1, because you have 0 through 3. So I get 4 statuses, but the tabs are indexed 0 through 3. So my statuses are 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I do the property status ID -1. And same with the group header. And that's how it changes as it goes through. It'll print out basically however you got it. So let's see, is if I try to get a little more. So as you can see, if I just do the view, it's really not. It just shows as if it was a normal report, basically, like that. But if I go into the print preview, so nothing earth-shattering, but it can be kind of useful at times. Any questions?
What's the difference between the format event and the print event? Do you know? I've never been able to work it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've used any of the stuff too. So, and
because I would have thought that the print event would fire when you're actually in normal view, but in preview, I would have thought the format event would have fired. But you're saying it's not when you're doing a preview. The format event, well, format event's firing, but it's not affecting the tab control value. Actually, that's an interesting syntax. But if I did know that in the past, I'd forgotten it. The way of making which page you want to show. So the tab report value isn't being properly affected in the format event.
When you're doing just the view, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, the report view. Yeah, the report view doesn't fire those events. Yeah. Yeah, I think if you try it, if you put a breakpoint here and then switch to report view, I don't think those events will fire. I've been wrong before, but
you might be able to use one of the other events in addition to it to be able to do, but I didn't check that. And I have to say that my being away from it for so long, when I went to go create this sample, it was like, holy crap, let's see, how did we do that? How was that done? I knew, and it was after George I'd already said that I could do it, and I was like, okay, I haven't dealt with this thing for what now, like almost 7-8 years.
Oh.
So, but it's still possible to do. I was just, and there may be ways of being able to do it I seem to remember that we had it so that it would work when you viewed it as well, but I couldn't find a way to make it work on just on my the time that I had to actually do the
Yeah,
thing. It might have been on the current.
yeah. I'm pretty sure, and I don't have this at the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that report view doesn't fire the same events that print preview or print fires, and so I think that's the reason why it doesn't display correctly. Does anybody have an insight to that? Who does a lot of reporting?
Hey, hey Bob, it's really good to see you. You know, I want to reserve my comment until I look something up, but my experience is that report view just doesn't fire very much at all. There are a few events that it does, and I thought I made a list of them, and that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I would say that I would agree with that, and I had it's just been so long since I've dealt with this that I can't remember for sure if we were able to do it in some way with it. But if I remember right, I think what we had done, almost everything that we had done was sending to PDF, so it didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on instead of doing research, but I'm almost sure that there was a discussion recently on one of the forums on this very topic, and that was kind of the answer is that it doesn't, if it does fire events, if the report view does fire events, it's very limited
Yeah.
compared to what print view does. So you have less control over that. But I'm looking at that. Can I change the subject slightly while Crystal does her research? It looks to me like this is a way to maximize your real estate by basically stacking.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What,
You instead of like many times where you'd have like multiple items that are stacked on top of each other and makes it hard to be able to see and view and select and all that sort of stuff, to be able to normally you'd just be able to make them visible, invisible, that sort of thing. But
you know,
it's hard to manage them, so to speak. So to be able to have it on a tab control where you can just go to a fresh page and you deal with just those items on there, that was kind of the real benefit that I saw in that.
so it's all using the same record source, I assume.
Yeah, because like I say, it's basically um, it's dependent on the record source for when it hits that group, to be able to change to that either a group, or if you're not grouping it, if it would hit whatever valued item that you could then assign to that page to display that page when it comes around to that that item. So it would definitely need to be all in the same um, data source.
Right. But I mean, that's an advantage. What I'm thinking, one of the alternatives is to load a sub control with different sub reports, which may or may not have the same record.
True. I mean, it's just going to require some method to be able to switch over to the proper one at the proper time. Because as it goes through, it would have you could have a main record source that has the item ID or whatever that you choose to be able how to identify it, and tie it to the page, the index, and then whatever you choose to display that tab, with it, whatever's on that tab will display.
So, I mean, it has the advantage of, in my mind, of minimizing the number of objects that you got to keep track of. I mean,
Still
if you have 10 tabs, that would be 10 sub reports that you'd have to manage. Yeah.
Yeah.
David, does your app use any reports, or are you mostly form based? Oh, I keep forgetting. Are you able to make yourself heard? Still no sound from David. Sorry. Go to Best Buy and buy yourself a new microphone, David.
Hey, somebody had asked what the difference was between format and print, and I can't see Bob's code anymore, so I can't see why he had to put it on the format event. But format is setting everything up, and then print happens after that, after everything is all lined up. Then the print event steps in right before it goes to the printer or to the display.
And I'm not seeing an on-print event. So, let's see.
I think you need to
It,
click on a section, like a detail section, instead of the report itself.
Yeah, okay.
It is on the bottom. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, again, down at the bottom. No, not there, but I see it's on paint, on print, the bottom of the properties list. But I see on paint. I wonder if that's the one you'd have to use for report view, if that would work for report view.
You know, I couldn't find my list, and maybe it's because there wasn't one. I had to do some things with report view, and I don't remember how I did it. I might have done it with expressions in the control sources.
Yeah, and like I said, I wish that I could remember. I can't even remember whether or not we were able to do it in report view or not, or if we had it in there. But I definitely know that it was in on the format event, or let's put it this way, that there was code in the on format event to display the
Right,
values.
and that's also the event where you can change heights and sizes of things. I don't think you can do that on the print. On the print event is where you'd put like lines that you're gonna, lay on top, but I don't think you can change sizes or what's gonna show at that point.
Yeah, and I'd say if anybody wants to give it a go, and try it out, try the different stuff, if it's something that's useful, that's what I'd say. But I mean, it's not something that's probably going to be used greatly, but it does have its moments. Like I said, when you want to put a whole bunch of different stuff in place.
Kent pointed out that it's difficult to if you're stacking your sub reports one on top of another and using the hidden visible, that can be really complicated. This looks like it would be
It does help simplify things, and again, like I said, managing it also it's much easier. Although it's fun trying to get your tab control back into thing, as long as you know what size you had it, you can go back and set the height again, make it easier. But trying to drag and stuff is a pain. I was like, it was driving me nuts the other day. But yeah, that was the thing. It was really pretty cool report that we had there, though. It was for the property status. Like I said, they had various different stuff showing for different statuses, and it was when we went to SSRS, it was not an easy report to port over.
So I just found in the help documentation that on format allows you to change an expression's parameters before that section gets generated. So I'm thinking that's probably why you use format, because that's where you can change those parameters of the tab report.
Right.
I think if you get to print, that's set in stone at that point. Does that sound right to you? Well,
Yeah, that sounds right, George.
well, I may be wrong. Don't quote me on it. But it makes sense logically. I'm just not sure that it's actually the right explanation.
Right.
Have you done anything? Do you have any memory? The relative size. Does this generate big reports, large reports, or slow to render, or does it impact that at all?
Didn't seem to hurt the performance at all, and it actually was pretty much a normal access report for, it would generate pretty quickly. And we're talking what they had was probably normally these things would come out totally, because what they had also is footnotes and things that were for a particular status and everything. So, but all that data and everything, it was probably, the report was, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 pages long, and was pretty quick.
Can you hear me now, George?
Yes, we can hear you now.
we can hear you now. Okay, great.
Although I'm getting a feedback myself. Okay, well, thank you, Bob. We've got plenty of time. Does anybody have any questions or issues they want to bring up? Because we've got some time here. Anything left over from previous meetings you want to address, or future meetings?
I have a question,
Yes.
and maybe you said it and I just missed it, but how does using the tab control work with grow and shrink?
I trying to remember if I had dealt with that. Did I? Well, one, I don't see that's available for a tab control, so it must not. However, basically, if there is not a value for that particular tab, it won't show it. But yeah, I don't see any tab controls don't appear to have shrink and grow functions.
What about on
Property.
the arrange tab? Because you can anchor them in forms and they'll get bigger and shorter. Well, they won't get shorter, but they can get taller and wider. I could look too, but since you're already looking, click on your tab control in design view and look at the anchoring. And maybe you'd have to just set anchoring and then what's inside it to be able to grow.
Yeah, my memory of tab controls on forms is that they tend to be fixed height. I don't know.
Well, you can anchor them and they'll get taller and shorter with the window.
Oh, okay.
I guess maybe that's something more, I don't know. I never thought about using a tab control on a report. I can see a lot of times where, especially if you have sub-reports that are a set size, or, and the example Bob's showing where you might want one but not another, I can see that it would be a lot easier to design using the tab control.
You don't have to worry about it overlapping or interfering with other. But I especially like the ability to just avoid all the management, multiple objects.
Well, yeah, I mean that was kind of the part that sold me when I saw the thing originally, that it was pretty cool for certain, like I said, it's not going to fit for everything, but sometimes when you got a lot of stuff and you got a lot of stuff that's got to be different, or if you got a lot of stuff that you would normally stack and then try to manage, which is a pain in the butt. This way, it just makes it a lot easier to be able to keep that part cleaner, easier to do than trying to, when you got the thing going in there and you're trying to, you got to go make sure you select the right control from the list, because you can't do it manually because they got 7, 8 controls stacked on top of each other. So you got to collect that. And then if you wanted to do something with it, sometimes that doesn't make it that easy to do, so that was part of the how helpful it was, and it was kind of blew my mind when I saw it because I'd never seen that been done before. I'm looking, trying to find any kind of anchor stuff on the report tab control, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, it's not on the property sheet. Anchoring is in the ribbon. And yeah, Kent said you can anchor.
Also, Jack found a reference that confirms that format and print do not occur in report.
Anyway,
I was just sitting here thinking I had another question, and by the time I got a chance to ask it, it's come and gone. So I'm going to sit here and ponder for a minute to see if I can remember what I was going to ask.
that's always fun.
Oh, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems to happen way more frequently as the years go by here.
Yeah. Oh, Can you? I assume you can put graphics into your tab
Yeah.
controls, and so you
Yep.
could manage those. Yeah.
That's why I say, it's like you can actually, even if you had a whole bunch of different graphics that you were going to be showing based on whatever, whatever ID or whatever is there with the stuff, you could have it switch fairly simply.
So, Kent, are you saying that anchoring does not apply in a report? That's true too. Yeah. The report view always seems sort of like a solution in search of a problem. Reports don't do anchoring. If I remember correctly, we've all been around for a long time, so you all know. It seems like report view came out about the time Microsoft was trying to enable this webification aspect of Access, and that seemed like something that they wanted to support the ability to just use a screen for everything.
Right.
And then I
Right.
think another advantage that they might have seen was it can't run code, so nothing dangerous can happen, which means not very much can happen.
Not much can happen, yeah.
But yeah, it supposedly, behaves like the web page, and I think you can use your same control arrows, control mouse wheel to make it bigger and smaller like a web page. But some people just really prefer it. I worked on a project where that's all they wanted was report view. They did not want print preview at all. That's why I had to go through a bunch of gymnastics to get the information without code.
You would have to create all of your grouping and sorting and everything in queries beforehand. Would you not? I mean, how would you do that?
I used a lot of expressions from what I can remember, and I can't remember if you can call VBA from the expressions. That might have been a no-no as well. I don't generally use report view because I like to put code where I want
Well, yeah.
and have it work.
Yeah, that's the one part drawback that I've found as to now what I'm working all those stuff I'm working on is that I used to be able to make things do whatever I wanted them to do. I could make things just amazing, and it would, you want this? Sure, no problem, we can do that. And now with SSRS and such, not so much.
Yeah, going back again, I remember down there at Advisicon, Bob created an Excel report that wrote line by line all the way from the top to the bottom. Do you remember that one? It was a work of art.
Well,
Every single row was coded.
when I went to PNC too, they had me do an Excel output that was to match a report that they had that included they wanted the lines, which basically was around the each section of the stuff, And this, we were still on 2003. So Office 2003. So I had to do all the fun calculation stuff to be able to hit just the right number of columns and drop it down to the next ones, because you could only go so far over. It wasn't like it is now where you could just go a long ways. So that one was, I thought I was doing pretty good with that one. My boss was very impressed with the thing that I came out with on that one.
Okay.
Yep, it was fun.
All right. So Kent just put a comment in the chat, which I'm going to repeat for everybody and then ask him to verify. So as you say, if your record source is SP, then it would be
Stored
easy.
proc.
Stored proc.
SharePoint? Or,
I was thinking either SharePoint or stored proc. It would be easy to populate the columns.
stored proc.
Stored proc, yeah. Yeah, sounds like a government report E, that is a standard form. Yeah. Yeah, that's a common thing from what I would call the newer users who want to replicate their standard government reports in Access, and wonder if that would make. No, I don't think this would address that problem.
Yeah, no, probably not quite, but
Well, we have a few minutes left. Do you have any more discussion you want to dive into? I have a couple of points that we can maybe look at. You want to change gears for a minute? Anybody else want to chime in on using tab controls in reports? Okay, at risk of being a little bit anxious, I'm going to leap ahead. I've talked to Juan again. He had to bail out on us that month when he was going to do his Access to SQL Server presentation. He has agreed to reschedule for February. So that seems like a good presentation for February. He always says he's not a SQL Server expert. He's an Access with SQL Server expert. So I'm kind of anxious to get his input on how he does that. So that's February. But is there any other subject that you would like to get, either revisiting something we've seen before in more depth, or something you'd like to bring in? Because I know I can tap a lot of different experts in different areas. So if there's something you'd like to see, let me know. Yes, no?
Or is Microsoft planning any kind of a new version for Access?
2022 is, I don't know if it released yet or if it's on its way. Or is it 2021?
Could we get them to talk about it?
I can talk to Michael and see what their future plans are. Yeah. I haven't heard back from him since he met with us. I think, reading between the lines, the level of enthusiasm for the Access connector to Dataverse was not what they were hoping for. I don't think it was just with our group. But I'll touch bases with him and see if he's interested in giving something on future plans. I know the roadmap has yeah, I know. Well, what I did was I put my hand on my mic and now it's gone again. I don't know what I did or didn't do.
I think David muted himself again. So, because I could tell when you were talking, his blue box came up as well. So it was just cycling through his mic still.
I know what I'm going to research for future meetings. I'm going to learn how to make this stupid audio.
Okay, we'll look back here in about 6 months and see if you've gotten it then.
See if I figured it out.
Just to
My real plan is to try to get Juan to consider alternatives to WebEx, but that's maybe too ambitious. Anyway, what was I? Oh yeah, okay. Back to future plans for Access. I know those three are on the roadmap, and the monster bug, what is referred to as the monster bug, which is the corruption in certain extent.
I like WebEx because it also has closed caption.
Well, I like WebEx for everything but the audio. It has not worked for me. I mean, it works, but I don't have the same level of problem with Zoom or with Teams that I have with WebEx.
Yeah, but that's where closed caption helps.
Well, then you got to count on the closed captions to get the words right.
Hmm.
There's been some creative.
You can usually figure it out.
So again, I'll just throw it back out. Other than those two ideas, is there anything else like that you would like to see? I'm thinking we could talk about SharePoint again, ribbon, customizing the ribbon. What's some of the other topics that we've?
I know one thing I'd like to see, and it's kind of prompted by a couple articles I just read recently by Mike Wolf, where he was explaining the COM. And it would be nice to see a presentation on how to make a COM add-in.
Oh yeah. I wonder if would he, I'll touch base with him, and if he's interested in following up on his blog article. I know who else does COM? Tom Van Stiffout does, I think, a lot of that. And I'm thinking of somebody else whose name is not. Oh, Albert. I think Albert does that kind of thing also. So maybe we can reach out and find somebody. And maybe Crystal, I don't know. Are you and Maria done with your series? Would you be interested in reprising it here?
Yeah, that's it. That was the last one.
Oh,
Can't believe we thought we'd do it all in 1 and then 2 and then 3, but no, 4 was it for that series.
so you don't have any more material stashed away?
Well, I think we just got to say, the series is over now. We'll just, do a different topic.
Okay, well, we'll talk
Yeah, I
about.
mean, the whole point of that was just to have kind of a pathway for a beginning developer and exposing them to all kinds of different things. And I think we did that.
Yeah, that's true. So David just raised an interesting question. I'll get back to you on that though, and I'm gonna hit some other people up too. But David just raised an interesting question. Is there anything we can do to get more interest in the Dataverse connector? And my initial response is why?
Show useful demos of what it can do. Why do we want, show us why we want to use it, why we can't live without it.
Yeah, that was the question that I posed to Michael, or sort of the question I posed to him before the presentation is, what does it do that I can't do with the tools that I have?
Mhm.
And I gave him the example of a SQL Server database that drives both the web app and the local Access front end. And what would Dataverse do for us that setup doesn't do?
What was his answer?
It boiled down to more. I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I'm going to be very careful to. It's more to that it's, I would say, ease of use, that it doesn't require as much back end knowledge and to set it up, make it work. Dataverse would handle security, for example, without a lot of configuration. It just seemed like it was more a way for less dedicated people to find a way to use that kind of resource without spinning up a whole set of skills in the SQL world. Pushing access data to smartphones. And that's another issue. You can drive PowerApp from Dataverse as well as from SharePoint or from SQL Azure.
I'd be interested in a comparison of various methods, for example, to push data to a smartphone, an iPad, an Android, whatever device, whether it's this Dataverse or PowerApps or whatever flavor you want to use, maybe even Tableau. Which ones do it most efficiently, so that if you do a side-by-side comparison of, for example, certain queries, are they all about the same as far as, I guess you'd have to be familiar with SQL Server to understand my question for those that are, but would they all result in the same number of logical reads and the same number of CPU, the same amount of CPU usage, or are some of the products worse than others as far as the amount of overhead?
more of a technical look at it rather than a practical how to look at it. Would that,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, more of a, because I'm not real familiar with some of the methods that developers use for access to databases, but I know a lot of them get a bad rap for sending awful queries to the engine that keep the engine busier than you would normally need to.
Yeah, yeah. Ben Clothier recently published a series of, I think, 3 or 4 blog posts on their website on that topic.
Well, he's doing one on ODBC. Is that the same?
Well, he's using ODBC, but I'm thinking, but it was what you were just saying about the reads and writes and the way Access marshals the data into a SQL statement to send it. Yeah. And I don't know if that has an overlap into what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, any of these products, be it PowerApps or Dataverse, they're going to be sending requests to a server. So the question is basically how efficient are the requests for getting the same data from method 1, method 2, method 3, PowerApps, Tableau, Dataverse.
Well, let's
Who's
see.
got the lead on efficiency?
Power Apps is just the logical thing. It still needs a back end, and Dataverse is native to Power Apps. And the other advantage of Dataverse, well, the only advantage I can see, is that with Power Apps, it's a free connector. But if you have data in SQL or another SharePoint, even, I think those you have to pay additional for those connectors.
No, only SQL would be paid. SharePoint is
Okay, so
one of the,
SharePoint is also kind of
yeah.
in there.
However, I will put some more cards on the table. I have been building Power Apps since my presentation last year. And what I've discovered is, well, 2 things. SQL Azure does cost. So that's like but they cut the price. So it's like $5 per user per month per app. So it could add up quickly if you were going to do it heavy duty. But of my experience using SharePoint with Power Apps has not been good. 725, so I won't launch into a lengthy discussion. But what it boils down to is, those wonderful lookup fields we have that you have to use to reinforce referential integrity in SharePoint.
Oh, yes.
Those are a super in Power Apps, just like they are. If you want to know more, I'd be happy to talk about it. But this isn't the time.
Well,
But yeah,
this.
I'm going to follow up on your idea here, Tom, because it may take some pushing and prodding and prying to find out who's willing to step up. But I will start that process of finding some resources, answers. I'll start with Michael Aldridge and see if he or somebody on his team staff is.
Yeah, I just remembered he did invite me to join the free trial, and I never got around to doing it for his Dataverse. But I also wanted to say I should have put this meeting reminder into my phone. I had it in my laptop, but I didn't have my laptop booted up. So then I realized it was almost 7 o'clock when I joined
No
the meeting.
problem. Yeah, tonight is a little more casual. We don't have a little shorter agenda, so
I guess I need to put the meeting notices into both devices. So that...
Well, that was what I started the meeting with, was talking about how interesting it is to try to find the right combination of reminders for everybody.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, some people want it 2 days ahead so they can arrange their schedule. Some people want.
You sent out plenty of notices. It's just I had the meeting notice in my laptop, but I didn't have my laptop booted up. So, of course, I didn't get the notice.
So we need to get you on Power Apps.
Yeah. And I hadn't bothered to, duplicate, put one in my iPhone.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I have 4 calendars, 5 calendars with sometimes conflicting statuses. Yeah. So Linda, I'm going to wrap it before we run out of time here. You at one point mentioned some demos that you might want to do. Have anything in particular you're interested in sharing in a future meeting?
Well, I always have something going on. One of my clients is involved in a legal situation where he had to find out what the inventory. He has a pet store, 2 pet stores. They had to find out the inventory on a specific day, what was in the store. So now, originally I wrote the query and said, don't include any dogs that were sold, or, only include dogs that were not sold or were sold after that date. I have a status, sold. It didn't look right.
Was this live inventory only? Because the first thing that comes to mind is how would you account for shoplifting thefts?
Oh, no, but no, they didn't care about that. But the thing was, what I realized is I had to do a union of all of the dogs that, my original query, not sold as of a certain date, and then union it with dogs that had been in the store and were sold after a certain date. Because if I picked sold as a status, I got the current status. And I needed the status as of like a month ago.
Yeah, that's why you need, this is one of my soapboxes, Linda. You don't need a status box that says sold, yes, no. You need a sold on date.
Well, we had a sold, but the problem is this. You can have a sold date. The thing was, if I use the sold date, in other words, I needed to take the dogs that were that had been in the store on that date and had been sold as a separate query, aside from the ones that hadn't been sold, and combine them. Otherwise the query just didn't work.
Okay, well, that sounds like something we'd be interested in seeing down in the next month or two. I can say that Juan has volunteered to try to reprise next month, but down the road, that'd be an interesting.
The thing that I think might be more interesting is the use of temp tables and creating a temp database. And I actually have some demos, for that.
Okay, that would be a good one.
They're astonishingly efficient, even in terms of speed.
I got into it.
They actually can make your report go faster.
I got into an interesting discussion with somebody in a forum not too long ago about using what you would call a side end, temp tables in a side end.
Well,
they're written to a separate AccDB. But the issue that came up, which surprised me as being somewhat contentious, was whether or not you delete those tables at the end of session or at the beginning of the session.
No, I always delete it at the beginning, because if I want to go back and see what happened, it's easier to keep them. Okay. The other thing is this, okay, in some cases, I was creating the temp databases locally, and I still do. But in some cases, they want to put all the temp data, they have multiple users with temp databases on the server. So what I did then was I created the temp MDB, but I called it temp user number.mdb. So each user was still able to get their own temp database for the reports.
That would work out. I want to see that.
Another thing I can show is, the worst thing you can possibly do. I deleted the data accidentally when I was working on for one of my clients.
Well, so that's never happened to anybody else, Linda.
They were able to recover it, but it was $300, which I paid. But what I do now is I have something called junk.bat, and it backs up the database every 10 minutes or after they close the file. Also, so it looked fine. It was working great. And then I get a call that and I put a time and date stamp on it, right? And I get a call, they're running out of disk space.
Oh.
I had so many backups. So I
Yeah.
also had a routine that said only keep the last 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with a situation once where part of the configuration was how many days of history you wanted to retain. So that was a problem. Anyway,
Another thing is,
You're- okay, well, don't tell us everything now. Save it for when I get you scheduled into a meeting.
okay.
So on that subject,
I'm talking about how, what I'm doing, it isn't exactly, it's still, I'd have to show it. But one of the things is people don't necessarily close the database, which causes corruption. So I have a routine that if there's been no activity for 10 minutes, it pops up a little screen and says, we're going to close you down unless you press a key.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got enough for at least one session between all those, or maybe two.
So, look, if you ever, I mean, I personally would rather hear from other people. I mean, I know what I did.
Well, I have mixed feelings about that too. And I'll put some more cards on the table. I like to get outside people to come and share their expertise, but I also like to hear from the people who are here all the time, because we're to be really cliched, we're all in this together. So I just like to have different people who participate.
No,
And I know that maybe not the it doesn't have the high power name draw of the project manager, program manager for Access at Microsoft, but
Yeah.
to me, it's much more of a community.
Yeah. Look, on fairly short notice, I can throw something together. I mean, the only reason, they're live databases, and I just don't like, live data to be all over the internet. So, when I make a demo, I try to hide the data.
You have to have enough time to do a prep.
And what else was I going to say? There's a website where it will generate names and addresses and email addresses for you for free.
Okay.
Which is really helpful.
Sort of random.
Well, when you're trying to come up with, a demo and you don't want to use real data.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
You just mentioned something that reminded me. So you talked about temporary tables, and I have an old sample that I built based on a posting where Dirk Goldgar offered some code. And I just found the sample and fired it up, and I realized I haven't converted it to be compatible to 64-bit. So I'm getting some kind of issue.
Okay.
But hopefully it'll be easy to, convert it it's right now 32-bit only. But if you're running 32-bit access, I could share it, tonight with you if you wanted to take a look at it.
Well, we're past our time, so I guess it's up to everybody who wants.
Is relinking. Sometimes you want to relink, and you have multiple databases and you don't want to have to go through each one. Now, the newest version actually allows you to more easily do that. But if you're using a slightly older version, you've got to go select all, delete all the ones that you don't want to sit. But I have a routine that just automatically figures out where each table is.
Armin Stein has a CAN procedure, but the last I looked, he had not modified it to allow relinking to text or Excel files. But if you're only relinking to MDB, Accdb, he's got quite a...
thought of that. I hadn't thought of that, because mostly when I'm using text files or Excel files, I'm bringing in new data each time.
Yeah. Kevin Bell also has an add-in that he sells, which does relinking. And it's very comparable to the new Access version that allows multiple data sources.
Well, the code isn't that hard to, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy, support your local Access database developer.
Yeah, but Armin's is free. I've used it for many, many years.
Yeah.
So. J Street Technology.
I used it when I was still working. Yeah.
And also, with, I don't know how many of you, by now, but, security, where, people can see different screens. One of my clients I think she's now retired, but she couldn't see the screen. She wanted it to be really large. So I made a screen that was really large, and her son was the kind of a family business that I don't want my screen to be really large. So I said, okay, if it's Kathy, use the screen that's large, and if it's not Kathy, don't use the screen that's large. And you can do this, on the, when they log in, you can, figure out which.
Were you resizing them on the fly or just using different forms?
No, I used a different form. It's just too annoying to try to, I mean, it just, nah, it's too ugly.
So Crystal, didn't Colin demonstrate something like that in his presentation? Isn't that one of the things that I know he has a resizer.
If he did, I totally missed it.
Okay, I know that he has a resizer, and I couldn't remember if it was part of what he did.
Right. No. And actually, if you go to accessmvp.com, is it there? accessmvp.com, Tom Van Stiffout has an entry about fuzzy text, comparing fuzzy text, and it's a DLL. And ever since I saw that, I've been wanting to know how he made it.
Yeah, and I tried to use this fuzzy text one and convert it to 64-bit, and so far I've fallen flat on my nose, so I haven't been able to do it.
Well, I'd like to change it.
So another thing I have is something called a launcher, where I only have to put the main copy of the database on the server. However, Microsoft and its infinite idiocy, there are like, I don't know, 5 or 6 computers in this one place. 4 of them use one version, and one of them uses not a different version of Access, mind you, but whatever it is in the background, the Visual Basic, something or other blows it up. So I have to have one version for one computer, and all the others get the other.
You know what I bet that could be? If they're all on the same version, check for updates, because I once battled an issue at Boeing.
Well, that's great, but I'm not there all the time.
Well, I'm just
don't know
telling
what
you
their
what to
updates
check
are.
for.
I had a conversation with somebody some years ago. He was a little snippy about things. Anyway, he said to me, my son and I bought exactly the same computer on exactly the same day at the same place, and his is working with whatever and mine isn't. I said, did you turn yours on? He said, well, of course I did. Well, then they're different.
They're different. You just reminded me of something else. Oh, see, I want to see. And now this is my big problem. I get wrapped up in discussions and I forget to watch the clock and I forget to ask my questions.
Well,
so
I have to tell you though.
Come back to me again.
When I started working for IBM 60 years ago, and they literally just about built the computers manually. So you literally could run a program on one of their computers, and the same computer it wouldn't work on, because they were pretty much. And as a matter of fact, they used our program to test the computers. They thought that much of it, the compiler. So I go to Endicott, IBM, Endicott, and I tell them to run this program to test their hardware, and it blows up. He said, there must be something wrong with your program. I said, you understand, I'm here because my program works and it's testing your hardware.
Well, yeah, that's the kind of thing that we run into a lot. But yes. I just remembered my other thing. What I want to see is the current state of updates for Windows Access and how anybody keeps track of that. I would like to invite somebody from Microsoft to just give not a detailed down to the nitty gritty, this version, that version, but just a big picture look of how that all works, because we battle that a lot. And I know Tom and I had a discussion not too long ago about the automatic updates, and that's what I'm thinking. It would be nice to be able to have.
Luke Chung has a nice page that summarizes that information.
But the problem is this. I mean, first of all, it turns out, okay, I have a Windows 7 computer, long story. I have a 32-bit and a 64-bit. Windows told me that both the 64-bit and the 32-bit can update to Windows 11. Frankly, it pleased me that they're not going to try to do that. I've heard nothing but bad things about Windows 11.
Yeah, I have nothing. The computer that I was going to set up to test it is not compatible, but I'm not going to put it on
That's
the
good.
one I use every day.
Then they can't mess it up.
Yeah, but that machine I've had a lot of issues with that. I'm going to pick up something else in the chat. Kent mentioned a backup routine that wrote every record to a second backup. Did that? I assume using the after update event on each form. So each time somebody changed something, they were creating a backup of that on that
Just
computer.
sent that as a private message because I don't see that one.
Oh, it says it was earlier in the thread.
Oh,
It's about-
okay.
okay. But the relevant thing is you also mentioned backups.
Yeah.
I had an issue, and Tom, we had this long extended discussion. I had an issue on that same computer where it just suddenly, or my mind suddenly stopped performing. It would take minutes instead of seconds to start, and then it would just be sluggish, but it was intermittent.
Oh, that was your Carbonite issue, right?
Yeah, and it turned out that I used Carbonite to back up to the cloud. And what would happen is this machine would go to sleep because I don't use it that much. But when it woke up, then it would survey the hard drive and say, I've got 6,000 something files to check. I first assumed that it was going to back them all out. What it was doing was comparing them locally to see if it had to back them up. And when that happened, nothing else happened on that computer. So
I used Carbonite and
backups are a
Acronis.
two-edged sword.
I used Carbonite and Acronis. Now, at one point, WinZip had something that said, we're going to clean up your computer for you. Just press this button, we'll clean it up. It totally destroyed it. And fortunately, Acronis recovered. I never wanted to test the recovery on Acronis, but I didn't have a choice and it worked.
Yeah, that's another one that happens a lot. Yeah, too. I have a story about that I won't drag in because it's kind of getting off topic a little bit. So I think I have plenty of ideas to pursue. I know I'll reach out to Tom about his DLL. I'll reach out to Microsoft. I'll start with Michael Aldridge and maybe Shane and see if we can get someone to review the current status of updates and what we should be looking out for. Because I think that's going to continue to be an issue. What I'm seeing in the forums is that as people came back from Christmas break, we're seeing a second wave. Just like the COVID, we're seeing a second wave in infections.
I know.
Of people with that bug that's hitting them as they come back from vacation and start the computer and they get the update and now they're broken. So, and Mike W, the com add-ins one, yeah. So I've got plenty. I'll save the chat and I'll cull all of these out of the chat
Now,
and start following up with people. So I know that, like I say, I've got February lined up and this gives me a couple of months to find something.
but Microsoft told me and other people that we make money because of their bad software.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that before too.
And they're not completely wrong, but all right, I say the only thing a consultant has to do, the only thing, is make the client look good. If you make your client look good, they will keep you employed forever. But Microsoft does not make me look good. And I'm their client, and they do not make me look good. In fact, when I get a new client, they often say, well, can't we use a Mac? Do we have to use Access on a PC?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Tom just popped in.
I wasn't keeping up with one of my clients. I taught them, I generally like to teach somebody in the company how to do all the queries and reports and stuff like that, and how to do some of the code changes. So when I'm done with something, then, they can just handle it. And then I pretty much leave them alone. Well, I didn't hear from them for several months.
Uh-huh.
And then it turned out that Access crashed. They can't be without their program for even an hour, and they switched to something different.
Exactly.
They're not using Access anymore, which is a real shame.
No,
I once had a guy at Boeing. I'd written a custom program for him. He was the only customer, and I hadn't heard from him for 6 months. And I said, "Hey, how's it going? Are you still using that program?" "Oh no, it quit working." And I go, "What? How come you didn't tell me?" "Oh well, I just use it on my neighbor's computer. It stopped working after I installed Office 64-bit." I said, "And you didn't tell me?" And so within a few hours, I'd converted it to be both 32 and 64-bit compatible. And I said, "Well, here you go. Here it is back." But it's a funny thing. They don't tell you when things stop.
Yeah, I think I've told this story in this group. I once did some upgrades to a client's database, installed it on the test user's computer that morning, and watched her start it up and work. And the first thing that happened when she started it was an error message. And before I could even say anything, she hit OK and went on. I said, wait. I need to know what the problem is. She said, "Oh, that's been there for months. We just click OK and it goes on. It doesn't matter." And so I'm thinking it didn't impact what they were doing, whatever it was. It had been there left by the previous developer. I had never run into it, but that's clients. Yeah. They tolerate a lot of things that most of us won't.
no, they don't. And now one of my colleagues, Barry Cunningham, wrote a very extensive procedure, which I envy, where it traps the errors. So even if they don't tell him about it, it tells him what the errors were.
Yeah, error logging.
And it's real nice, but I've kind of trained my clients to call me on just about anything, which they do.
I'm not sure which I like better. I think I've also said in this group, one of the nice things about being retired is if the phone rings, it's usually my daughter, not somebody wanting something right now fixed.
Well, I like working. I mean, I'm 82. I'm hoping to work for another 30 years. All right, I'm actually 81. I won't be 82 for a few weeks. But as soon as the new year comes, I up my age.
Well, I hope you make it. I hope you do that.
But I saw the oldest person ever live to be 122. So I want to live to be 123. Actually, this story has nothing to do with Access, but and it's a true story. In France, they sold an apartment that had a tenant. The tenant was like 98 years old. And the idea was that, at some point she'd pass away and they'd get the apartment, and they had paid less because of the fact that, she was so old. I think she was the one who lived to be 122. And the owner who bought it died at 65. So
Yeah, there you go.
you just don't know.
Okay, you just don't know. David just asked another interesting question in chat. Does it make sense to purchase computers for your clients and install your applications on them? I've only done that one time, and actually twice. The first one, I didn't actually buy it. They just had me spec it out and order it the way I wanted to work with it. But the second one actually had me buy it and put it in my car and drive it across the state to Pullman and set it up in their lab, in their laboratory. And they paid my travel expenses and a night in the motel and everything to have me do that. And his explanation, because once I was there and I asked, why would you do this? He said, it may not be cheaper, but at least I know it's going to get done right. IT do it, I'm not sure what I'm going to
Absolutely.
get.
Absolutely. Actually, you know,
And
I
it was
think
worth him to spend an extra couple of grand of my time and expenses to do it.
exactly. I pay people for things that, you know, like you know, it is difficult for me to bend down. As I say, I have no problem getting on the floor. It's the getting up part that I have an issue with. So, and I don't like just about anybody fooling with my computer. So anything that has to be plugged in, I will call my computer guy. But you know, one of the sayings I don't know if I've told you, but you know, as I tell my clients, you know how many programmers it takes to change a light bulb? None. It's a hardware problem.
Okay.
And the truth is, I have literally had problems changing light bulbs. So I had this fixture and I didn't know what the heck was wrong with it. And I called the electrician and he came over and he tightened the light bulb. Wow.
Okay. So I got another question here in the chat. Can you demo using C# for those of us who are .NET challenged? Is there anybody want to demonstrate their .NET skills?
I don't know.
I maintain two websites with C#. And before I retired, the one that I was just talking about, I maintained their website. Somebody else built it. So I know enough C# to get in trouble. I can
I'd like
give
to see that demo if you want to do it,
Yeah.
George.
very high level stuff. It's not going to be, it's not going to be singing and dancing.
Yeah.
When the Windows Phone came out, I got all into programming it. And so I actually have another YouTube channel with some videos on how to write C# and XAML code for the Windows Phone, which of course doesn't exist anymore, but it does have some really good basic stuff on C#, and that's just Learn by Crystal. That's the channel name. And I think there's 3 videos there. And I was learning C#, so as I was learning, I was making really good notes on those videos as just kind of a way in. That's not your standard way to learn it.
So maybe we could kind of do a
Sure.
Yeah, you know,
throw in together and do that.
an interesting thing. So I actually created a website for myself, or my wife and myself, to be able to check to see while we're out whether or not we have a particular movie. So it's basically a SQL backend on SQL Server, and then the web page is actually was created using C# to be able to look up a movie, and I can do it from a web browser or from my phone or anything like that. So then I can quickly check to see, do we have that movie? Yes, we do. Don't buy it again. Because until I did that, we probably bought about 5 or 6 movies over and over again because we couldn't remember if we had bought it or not.
It was that pre-Netflix days.
Yeah, that's so we currently use it. And I keep it updated. I showed you that, I think, last time we talked, when
We
after the
talked
last
about
meeting.
it, but I don't know if you showed it to me.
I think I showed it to you.
I shared my screen. Can you see my website?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all done with C#.
Oh,
And it's really, like I say, it's ugly because the design is not a strong point. But all of this stuff here,
nice.
this is all done with C. Oh, and there's a. Oh no, that's code snippet. Yeah, this is all done with database calls.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, it's pretty basic and pretty ugly, but it's. So maybe you and I could do a couple, put together a half hour each and do.
That would be great.
Because it's entirely database driven, or not entirely, but 90% of it is database driven.
So
But it's something I do on the days when I'm not playing with Power Apps or walking.
Yes.
What
So-
days are you not walking, George?
I think
Well,
I'm gonna go, okay, but
I'm-
it really has been fun. And I enjoy the chit chat as much as the demo. And
Well,
thanks
you
for
know,
demoing the tab control on a report. Never would have occurred to me to use it on a report. I
I
have to
think
think
we-
about that more.
Yeah, I think we need to follow up on that with a little more in depth.
All
Tom, I walk 3 days a week now because my knee needs a recovery day.
Because you were pretty much every day.
Yeah, for a long time, but like I say, my knee got to the point where if I try to do it every day, then I can't do it any days.
Yeah.
So yeah, down to 3.
Well, feel better. I'm
Oh,
gonna go.
no, it is what it is, Linda. You know,
Okay.
when you get to a certain point, that's the way it is.
Well, the problem I have with getting old is not my knee or, look, I have trouble walking. I think I had polio when I was a child and I just deal with it. The problem is my friends are not all getting older. And even the ones who are moving away.
I've been down.
And that's annoying. I don't mind getting older, but I want all of you to get older too. So that's my story. Okay? Take care.
Okay.
Enjoy. See you next month.
See you next month. Yeah, I guess we probably should wrap it up. We've gone plenty of time.
Okay. I'm gonna go. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. I'll just kind of wrap this up. David, I told you I had a smart Windows phone. I lied. I must have thrown it away or given it away already. It's not in that drawer where I thought it was. Sorry. So on that note, I think we better wrap it up. This is gonna, this is gonna take a while to edit this one.
So if anybody wants to see that in the chat there, I put the URL for my
movie.
movie thing.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can see what movies I have.
All right. We'll do that. Well, I'm going to kill the recording now. I'll see you
Okay.
guys all next month. Thanks again.
I sent you the file too, George, so that you'd have it.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Okay.
Bye.